Two retirees, same nest egg, $700,000 each. Both retired the same year. Both own the same handful of dividend funds. Both collect the exact same income every month. One of them just got back from Portugal, took the whole family, paid cash, sleeps like a baby. The other hasn't taken a real vacation in 6 years, drives across town to save a few dollars on gas, and every night checks the account balance one more time before bed. Same money, same income, completely different lives. So what separates them? It isn't the market, it isn't their returns, it isn't even how much they saved. It's one word: permission. One of them gave themselves permission to spend what their portfolio was built to pay them. The other never did. And here's the part that surprises people. The second retiree isn't being smart. They just think they are. Once your dividend income covers your bills, the whole game changes. You're not living off your savings anymore. You're living off what your savings produce, and those are two very different things. By the end of this video, you'll know 3 things. 1. How to tell when your income truly covers your life, the real number, not a guess. 2. Which dividend funds actually let you spend the income while your principal stays whole, and which popular ones quietly hand you back your own money and call it a dividend. And 3. A tax rule that lets some retired couples collect 6 figures in dividends and owe the IRS almost nothing. That middle one matters more than you'd think. One of the most popular income funds out there pays over 8%. Sounds incredible, but a big chunk of that check might be your own principal walking back out the door, and most people holding it have no idea. Quick note before we go further. I'm not a financial advisor or a government employee. Everything here is for educational purposes only. For your specific situation, always check with a qualified professional. All right, let's start with why the best savers freeze. Here's something almost nobody tells you about retirement. The people who are best at saving are often the worst at spending. And when you think about it, it makes sense. You spent 30, 40 years training one muscle. Save more, spend less, watch the number grow. That muscle got strong. It's the reason you have anything at all. Then you retire and suddenly you're supposed to do the opposite. Spend it, enjoy it. And that muscle doesn't just switch off, it fights you. Let me show you how real this is. 2 researchers, David Blanchett and Michael Finke, studied how retirees actually spend. Married couples over 65 with at least $100,000 saved. Guess how much of their money they pull out each year? 2.1%. That's it, 2.1% a year. Singles spend even less, about 1.9. In plain terms, most of these retirees only ever spend about half of what they saved. Half. The other half just sits there, untouched for the rest of their lives. Think about that. You work decades to build the money, and when the time finally comes to use it, you use half. Not because you ran out, because you were afraid to start. The research group EBRI found the same thing from another angle. A huge share of retirees barely draw their savings down at all. Many finish retirement with as much as they started or more. They die with the whole pile intact, having gone without the entire way. And here's the twist most people never hear. Your spending naturally falls as you age. Blanchett mapped it and calls it the retirement spending smile. Right after you retire, in your go-go years, you spend more. Travel, projects, grandkids, then it slowly drops, bottoming out around age 84, about a quarter lower than when you started. Late in life, it ticks back up for healthcare. So the years you're most able to enjoy your money, the healthy, active, early ones, are exactly the years fear tells you to hold back. That's the trap. And once you see it, you're already ahead of most people, because smart retirees figure out one thing. The balance was never the goal. The balance is just the machine, the income it produces. That's the whole point. So let me ask you something, and be honest with yourself. If your investment income covered every bill starting tomorrow, would you actually let yourself spend it, or would you just watch the number climb one more year? Sit with that. We'll come back to it. The number that means enough. Okay, so how do you know when you've actually crossed the line, when your income really does cover your life? This is where smart retirees get specific. They don't guess. They run one simple number. Let me walk you through it because it's easier than it sounds. Start with what you actually spend. We'll use real figures. The government tracks this. For households 65 to 74, average yearly spending is right around $65,000. That's everything: housing, food, healthcare, the car, the fun stuff.
Now, you don't cover all of that from your portfolio. Social Security does part of the work. The average retired worker's check in 2026 after the cost of living raise is about $2,071 a month. For a couple, once you add a spouse's benefit, you might land somewhere around $3,500 a month. Call it $42,000 a year from Social Security. So let's do the math out loud. $65,000 in expenses minus $42,000 from Social Security, that leaves a gap of about $23,000 a year. That's the real number. That's all your portfolio has to produce, not the whole 65, just the 23 that Social Security doesn't cover. $23,000 a year. That's your income floor. And here's the beautiful part. You don't sell anything to hit it. If your dividend funds pay you 3.5% to 4% a year, it takes somewhere around $600,000 invested to throw off that $23,000 in income every year without touching a single share. Now here's a number that might surprise you. The average household aged 65 to 74 has right around $600,000 saved. So for a lot of diligent savers, the floor is already covered. They're standing on it. They just never ran the math, so they don't feel it. You've probably heard of the 4% rule. Pull 4% the first year, adjust for inflation, and history says you likely won't run out over 30 years. The man who created it, William Benjamin, later called 4% too cautious and raised it to about 4.7. Morningstar, being more careful, puts the safe starting number near 3.9 today. But notice something. Those are all rules for selling your assets down. Draw a percentage, hope it lasts. When you live on dividends, you flip the whole problem. You're not drawing the pile down at all. You're spending what it pays you and leaving the pile alone. The 4% rule is about not running out. Living on income is about never having to worry in the first place. Now, not everyone has $600,000. If you're closer to the median, around $200,000, your dividends might cover a good chunk of that gap, but not all of it. And that's okay. Social Security still carries most of the load, and every dollar of dividend income on top is a dollar you didn't pull from principal. The strategy still works. It just works in proportion to what you've got. So now you know your number. The next question is the big one. Which funds actually let you live on the income while your principal stays whole? Because, and this is the part almost nobody says out loud, not all income is created equal. Some funds pay you real money the company's earned. Others pay you back your own money and dress it up as a dividend. Let me show you the difference. It matters more than any yield number on the screen. Start with the funds that do it honestly. The best known is Schwab's Dividend Fund, ticker SCHD. It pays somewhere around 3.5% right now, and it costs almost nothing to own, about 6 cents on every $100. But here's the real magic. Over the last decade, it's grown its dividend around 10 to 11% a year. Your income doesn't stay flat, it grows, faster than inflation. It's the raise you give yourself without lifting a finger. Then there's Vanguard's High Dividend Fund, VYM, around 2.5%, dirt cheap, spread across hundreds of companies so you're not betting on a handful. And DGRO, a dividend growth fund that leans a little more toward rising payouts than high yield. What all three share is the thing that matters. When they pay you, they're handing you income the businesses actually generated. The share price isn't quietly being drained to fund your check. Your principal stays intact, and historically, it's grown right alongside your income. That's what living on your dividends is supposed to mean. Now here's the myth. The myth is that the highest yield is the best income fund. Bigger number, better paycheck, right? Here's the truth. The highest yield can be the fastest way to shrink the very thing that produces your income. Take a guess before I say it. Of the popular high-income funds out there, which one do you think is quietly the riskiest for your principal? Hold that thought. There's a whole category of funds built to pay huge yields, 8, 10, even 14%, using option strategies. The famous one is JEPI, paying north of 8%. And I'll be fair to it. JEPI has real strengths. When the market fell hard, it dropped far less than the S&P did. It cushions the blow. That's genuinely useful. But there are two catches. First, that cushion cuts both ways. When the market runs, JEPI gets left behind. Over the last several years, the S&P returned roughly 13% a year, while JEPI did closer to 7.5%. And second, most of JEPI's income is taxed at your regular rate, not the friendly dividend rate. Hold it in a taxable account and the tax bill quietly eats a slice of that yield.
And then there are the extreme ones, funds paying 12, 14%. That's where it gets dangerous. At those levels, part of that income isn't income at all. It's return of capital, which is a polite way of saying they're giving you your own money back. The fund's value slowly bleeds down over time, and you don't feel it because the fat check keeps landing in your account. You feel rich. You're actually being liquidated in slow motion. So that's the honest picture. Real dividend growth keeps your principal alive and growing. Chasing the highest yield on the screen can quietly spend it for you. Smart retirees don't buy the biggest number. They buy the income that lasts. Quick question before we move on. What's the yield on the biggest income holding you own right now? Just the number, whatever it is. Drop it in the comments. I read every single one, and I'll give you an honest take on whether that yield is coming from real dividends or from your own principal. The tax gift most retirees miss. Now let me show you why this matters even more than it looks. There's a tax rule here that sounds almost too good to be true, but it's real. Qualified dividends, the kind those quality dividend funds pay, get their own special treatment. They're not taxed like your paycheck was. They're taxed at 0, 15, or 20%. And that first bracket, the 0% one, is bigger than most people realize. Here's how it works for a retired couple. In 2026, a married couple filing jointly can have taxable income up to about $99,000 and pay 0% federal tax on their qualified dividends. 0. And it gets better because deductions stack on top of that. A couple both 65 or older gets the regular standard deduction plus an extra amount for being over 65, plus a new senior deduction that was just added. Add it up, and you're looking at somewhere around $140,000 in deductions before that $99,000 even starts counting. Let me put the two pieces together out loud. Roughly $47,000 in deductions, plus about $99,000 of room in the 0% bracket. Stacked up, a retired couple can potentially collect somewhere in the neighborhood of $140,000 in qualified dividends and owe little or nothing in federal income tax on it. Read that again. 6 figures of income, barely taxed. That's the reward for owning the right kind of income in the right way. Now, I have to be straight with you because this is where the fine print lives. Social Security has its own rules that can pull part of your benefit into the taxable column, and that interacts with this math. Your state might still take a cut. So this is the best case version, not a promise for everyone. Run your real numbers with a tax professional. But here's why I brought it up. Remember those high-yield option funds from a minute ago? Their income mostly does not qualify for this treatment. It's taxed as ordinary income. So the fund with the flashy yield can hand you a bigger headline number and a bigger tax bill, while the quieter dividend fund hands you income the government barely touches. That's the kind of thing smart retirees notice. The irony no one warns you about. There's one more piece, and honestly, I find it a little funny. If you're so worried about spending your money that you just never do, the government eventually makes you. They're called required minimum distributions. Once you hit 73, 75 for younger folks, the IRS requires you to start pulling money out of your traditional retirement accounts whether you want to or not. On a $600,000 account, that first required withdrawal is around $22,000, and it grows every year after. So sit with the irony. The fearful saver spends decades refusing to touch the money, and then at 73 gets forced to take it out anyway, often as a big taxable chunk that shoves them into a higher bracket. All that self-denial, and they lose control of the timing in the end. Roth accounts, by the way, don't have this rule. One more reason the smart move is to plan your income on purpose, early, instead of being forced into it later. Now I have to be straight with you, because this is where I owe you the risks. Living on income isn't magic. Companies can cut their dividends. It happened in 2008. It happened again in 2020 when a wave of companies slashed or suspended their payouts almost overnight. A diversified fund spreads that risk out, but it doesn't erase it. Inflation can eat at a flat income stream, which is exactly why dividend growth matters so much. And some smart people will tell you that simply selling a few shares from a total market fund can work just as well as chasing dividends. They've got a point.
The real edge of living on income isn't that it wins on paper, it's what it does to your behavior. When your bills are paid by income, you never have to sell into a scary market. You just hold. And that piece is worth more than most people realize.
So here's the whole thing in one line. Write this one down. Once your dividends cover the bills, the only thing left to retire is the fear. That's the shift. The income does its job. The principal stays your safety net and your legacy. And you finally get to enjoy the life all that saving was actually for. So let me leave you with this. If you know someone sitting on a paid-off house and a solid portfolio who still won't book the trip, still won't fix up the kitchen, still won't let themselves enjoy it, send them this video right now. It might be the permission they've been waiting for. And I want to hear from you. Here's my question. Have you crossed the line yet? Does your income cover your bills, or are you still building toward it? Just tell me where you are. I read every single comment. If you're building real retirement income and you want to stay ahead of the tax traps and the fund traps that quietly cost people their peace of mind, subscribe to the channel. I break this down every week in plain English, no hype.